Etc. podcast, a podcast about how ideas and culture spread among Black Americans, especially outside mass media. I'm your host, Ian Youssef. Last week's guest was Dr. Constance Bailey. I thought it was a great episode, and I actually found out about Dr. Bailey in part through this week's guest, Mr. Lamont Jack Pearley. Mr. Pearley is a traditional country blues artist and African American traditional music historian and applied folklorist. But he's also executive director and founder of the Dappa Blues Heritage Preservation Foundation and the African American Folklorist Magazine, which is where I saw Dr. Bailey's interview. So back-to-back folklorists. I thought my discussion with Lamont Jack Pearley was fantastic. We talked about what it meant to be a Black folklorist and how his work as a blues artist informed his work as an applied folklorist. He was able to tell me the circumstances that led to him founding the African American Folklorist Magazine, which was effectively highlighting the great work of African American folklorists whose work, for whatever reason, was not pushed to the forefront where people could find it. There's a section where we talk about the blues as a genre and what it means for African American culture, as well as the concept of the blues people. Again, we talked a little bit about digital media and Black folklore and the relationship between folklorists and archivists, and what that means in a particular case of Black folks. We also talked about something that's recurring, the concept of being a race man or a race woman in the modern era, and how folks who are doing Black cultural work view their role in uplifting and supporting Black people. So just a fruitful discussion, very engaging, thought-provoking, fun. Please enjoy. I'm here today with Lamont Jack Pearley. He is the executive director and founder of the Dappa Blues Heritage Preservation Foundation and the African American Folklorist Magazine. He's an applied folklorist. He's an African American traditional music historian and a traditional country blues practitioner. He's a blues artist himself. He's also an inductee into the New York Blues Hall of Fame, and he's soon to be Dr. Pearley. He's a PhD student at the University of Indiana Bloomington in ethnomusicology. Welcome, Mr. Pearley. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
You define yourself as an applied folklorist. What does that mean exactly?
Well, the good thing is I can actually finally give a concrete answer for that, because folklore is and ethnomusicology, they're specific things but have multiple definitions. As an applied folklorist, I research, document, collect cultural engagement, patterns of tradition and behaviors, and agreed upon interactions of, well, I'll say particular groups as a definition, but for me, what I call the blues people. And I utilize what I find or what I research or the interviews, oral history, or ethnographic documentation for the betterment of my people, which is the blues people. So the research is applicable to the forward movement of the people, if that makes sense.
Yes. And just to be clear, when you say blues people, is that taking up from Baraka's concept, or are you pulling from an earlier tradition?
No. He is of, when I say rabbis, I don't want to make it seem as if I had the honor to study under him, but his voice, John Wesley Work, and James Cone are kind of like the three wise men that began to formulate my scholarship.
Mm-hmm. Why did you start the African American Folklorist Magazine, and what is its mission?
Okay, so the African American Folklorist comes after Jack Dappa Blues. And essentially, I found the same issue that pretty much inspired what becomes Jack Dappa Blues. I was looking for information and I couldn't find any Black folklorists or Black folk that does that kind of work. I was really finding a lot of non-Black people.
Mm.
And I can get into the many reasons of that, but essentially, I come across Dr. Shirley Moody Turner, who would ultimately be the very first Black American folklorist by academic definition that I would interview. Now, she was part of, if I'm not mistaken, African American Literature and History Department at Penn State. Folklore is often listed or connected to the Department of Literature, History, and the like.
Mm-hmm.
And I found her because in my search and quest, if you will, there is a book that I encourage everyone to get, Black Folklore and the Politics of Racial Representation.
Mm-hmm.
And Shirley Moody Turner wrote this book. So when I found this book, I found my first Black folklorist. And then I reached out to her, and that was my first interview with a Black folklorist by definition. And if you will, ask me after I answer your question why I keep saying by academic definition.
Mm-hmm.
So what ends up happening is one thing leads to another, and between her and a good gentleman, a non-Black gentleman named Dr. Simon Bronner, they both invite me to the American Folklore Society. Mm. And my first trip there, I believe it's 2017 or 2018, and I was approached by a 6-foot white-haired Black woman who invited me to dinner, which was a tradition. She gathers all of the Black folklorists and anthropologists and ethnomusicologists, all the Black scholars at this conference, and we all go out. And I sat with a slew of Black folkloristic scholars, and I was like, man, this is what I've been looking for. Number one, right? And number two, I realized that, I didn't find these people when I was looking. So maybe my contribution is to present a situation where they're celebrated and accessible to those who are not in the academy or those who may not know how to specifically find certain things, but can look African American folklore and find them. So essentially, the goal of the newspaper, which is what it was to highlight and raise awareness of lesser known scholars, which were Black folklorists.
Yeah. And you succeeded. I tell you that. All of the folklorists who I've reached out to and found, a lot of them I found through your interviews and your organization. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
You have a nice presence online as a Black folklorist. Connected to that, how important is digital media in preserving Black folklore? And what are some of the unique challenges Black folklorists face in online spaces?
So a benefit of the digital space is accessibility. So the idea of me doing all of the work that I've done comes from lack of accessibility from the people this stuff comes from the blues to how we document, right, and archive. Mm-hmm. Right, so that's number one. But then number two, on the flip side, there was always a lack of access for us, but there was always a sense of extraction, gatekeeping, and exploitation of our intellectual property, our intangible and tangible cultures and traditions. Mm-hmm. So from a group of people that's always been exploited financially through our intellectual properties, there is this idea and actually happening where we still are getting exploited to a degree because the internet, digital media allows things to be way more accessible. So if you think of the older white men that through the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and probably even before that, going to the houses of these black families, offering them dinner and corn liquor and stuff, and asking them, "Hey, can I, look through your pictures?"
Mm-hmm.
And finding pictures of Robert Johnson or Son House or whoever,
Right.
and then coercing this family to sign the rights away and the name away. We can see similar things happening via online. Now, on the flip side, it's ethics, right?
Yeah.
A good scholar and a friend of mine who is on the cover of my calendar, a Brandy Waller Pace. I was like, "Hey, do you like this picture? Do you mind if I use this?" And she was like, "Hey, brother, you know something? I do love it, and I'm happy you're doing it." She said, "Don't forget to send us release forms."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I didn't say this to her. And in my mind, I was like, I always send release forms. I guess I got a little comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And in the conversation her and I had was, we have to continue to uphold the rules that we're establishing to dismantle colonization and the exploitation of our people. So we can't play the same games they do, even if that's not what we're intending to do. We still have to be accountable.
Mm-hmm.
I have a course beyond the romance of the field, and that course breaks down a code of ethics and a toolkit to do this work. And in that work, the idea of being a responsible steward and the idea of accountability comes up often.
Mm-hmm. I heard you mention in passing archivists.
Yes.
What is the relationship between them and folklorists, especially amongst Black people?
Well, this is a great question because, like, the majority of my journey as a folklorist, applied folklorist, and now ethnomusicologist could be added to that.
Mm-hmm.
Like yourself and like so many people in this, thank you for this question because it goes back to what I was saying. Dr. Shirley Moody Turner is a Black folklorist by academic definition.
Mm-hmm.
He's also a Black folklorist, period. But I make that distinction, not necessarily for her because it's a point I'm making. There are folks that engage in cultural work that, like myself, didn't know we would the terminologies for what we were doing. I didn't know I was doing folkloristic work or applied folkloristic work or archiving, to your question, right?
Mm-hmm.
My wife comes into my home office at the time was our bedroom, and she walks in and was like, "Hey, you know that old white man that likes to go to the South and record old Black men?" I was like, "Lomax?" She was like, "Yeah, that's what you do." And that's essentially that's essentially how I found out,
Yeah.
right? And then I had to look this up. So I say all this to say, I didn't know I was doing archival work, and I'm sure a lot of people don't realize they're doing archival work. There are some people who are intentional with archival work, and they're introduced to it through their journey somehow, whether they worked in a museum, some sort of institute, or even went to school or worked in a library, or worked in an archive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there are people who would know this, but there's a lot of us who didn't realize, and this is part of the class that I offer on African American folklorists, which is called Black Junk.
Mm-hmm.
And I call it Black Junk because essentially what you would hear grandma or uncle say, "Yo, throw that away. That's junk." That's the archive,
Yeah.
right? So now, how do these two things live and marry together? So I would say this, first and foremost, I begin to understand the relationship going to conferences where I would see folklorists and archivists presenting together and then getting a sense of the work. As a folklorist, as someone who engages in ethnographic documentation, right, where I interview, write, research, you're going to go to an archive to research because that's where you'll find whether it's primary source materials or even if you're not even a folklorist, but anyone that is doing scholarly work, whether it's community scholarly, familial, family, whatever, you go to an archive for research items, primary source, secondary source, and the like.
Mm-hmm.
So now folklorists, right, or ethnomusicologists, or even a cultural anthropologist or sociologist, anyone who does interviews or surveys, take pictures, do what we call participatory observation, which is going out in the field and interacting with folks in their elements. These findings, these pictures, these interviews, these notes, a lot of the time ends up in an archive,
Mm-hmm.
which becomes primary source for people to research, right?
Yeah.
So that if you understand that, which is something that I begin to keep in the beginning in the front of my mind, that changes how you approach the work. So now for the African American folklorists, it's no longer just a magazine, it's an entire ecosystem. It's an ecosystem of archival legacy, memory, and multidimensional, because Black folk, we don't just live in the now, we don't just live in the past, and we don't just live in the future. All these things are happening simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
So now we offer resources to archive, to document, to interview, as well as to have a place to share your archive with. And we also teach you how to, or give you resources and workshops on how to manage or begin to manage essentially your archive, because it's a reciprocal relationship between the folklorist and the archive.
Mm-hmm. Why is blues the genre or the lens through which many Black thinkers and artists, you mentioned Baraka before, view our cultural expression?
Well, first I'll put it to you like a friend of mine put it to me, who's a musician, a blues musician. He told me this many, many years ago. He said, blues is the butt-naked truth.
Mm.
So now, to take that and put it in somewhat of a, I guess, scholarly, but I thought that statement was scholarly enough. But the way I say it, blues is the oral, right, speech, and oral here, story of Black American existence. Okay, you want to know about cotton and gambling on ponies? You go listen to a Son House
Yeah.
song where he's telling you the price of cotton while he's talking about putting money on a horse.
Yeah.
Right?
My favorite, Charlie Patton, Mississippi Boll Weevil.
Thank you. So let's talk about that song. That song is very, very significant to American history, to global history, and the global industry, because he's explaining how these bugs interfered with the major crop import and export.
You know what? That's my favorite blues song, and I never thought about it like that. That's crazy.
So these folks, one, they establish the music industry as artists and as labels, because they understood, okay, if I go, and I'll use this as an example because it's way more convoluted and intersectional than it has always been expressed. But to keep it simple, you have one region that's ragtime, one region that's Delta, one region that's Piedmont, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have the same artists go to each region and will change their name based on the region, because that means if they call themselves Delta Blues Johnny in a ragtime region, they don't get no work.
Mm-hmm.
So these folk knew how to market and position themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They were also the newspaper and the radio, because they come to town and they tell stories of what's going on in another area that the people who live and work in this one area may never get to go. Then there's those who knew and accepted the fact that they were breathing archives of Black expression, right? And they're carrying songs of 100 and 200 years old. They're carrying, so I say all this to say that's why the blues is, for me, the lens of the Black American experience, and then from the Black American experience, diasporic.
Yeah. On that same note, can you give me some examples of like a through line of that ethos and blues from the old days through to the modern day? The way I put it is, what are some modern songs that function in form and content as basically blues songs?
Sure, there's so many. I mean, out So Simple Then by Wu-Tang Clan is the blues.
Mm,
Grew up on the island, AK Shop.
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, that's the blues,
yeah.
essentially. You can hear Sun House and you can hear Booker T. Washington and these folks talk about Mississippi Jailhouse Farm,
Mm,
right? Which we know what jailhouse they're talking about, right?
yeah.
Then you can hear Ini Kamosi talk about Hot Stepper, his song about Rikers Island, or even Coco T does a song about Rikers Island. But then we also have Coogee Rap who does a song about Rikers Island,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so there's a throughway of Black experience, not just that kind of Black experience, right?
Yeah.
Then there's a throughway of potions, right? You have D'Angelo talk about Mojo,
Mm-hmm.
just like Muddy Water talk about Mojo.
Yeah, she don't work the root. Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. So Black culture has been, this has been going on, and if you start seeing people who practice hoodoo,
Mm-hmm.
you will see practices of old. If you see people that are Pentecostal coming from a particular area, you're going to see practices of old. And that's all the blues.
Yeah. And thinking about this question, my mind went to Tupac Shed So Many Tears.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's right.
A bunch of Scarface songs.
Scarface is the blues.
Yeah. Devin the Dude, he has the One Briar Patch, which is basically just a retelling of the old Brer Rabbit Briar Patch stories.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, so many, he has a bunch of them too, but yeah. And then even on the, I guess, less serious tip, a lot of the blue and body rap, is the through line
Right.
from the old body blues stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, you can go see The Land Where the Blues Come From, right? An old Lomax film, and you can see them filming this guy in the old juke, and he's doing what people come to know now as Dolomite type work. Like Muhammad Ali did that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So these raps are blues,
Yeah.
right? Playing the dozens. These are all. It shows up in the music. And then when you think about minstrelsy and vaudeville, as people tend to frown upon that, but that's how Black artists work.
Mm-hmm.
And these were big to do performances. So then we think about In Living Color and Mama Mabley and Flip Wilson and their variety shows, those were the result of Black minstrelsy and vaudeville show, which was a variety show.
Yeah.
Then we think of people like Noble Sissel and Eubie Blake. What they ultimately do is make a beginning, middle, and end. They do away with minstrelsy. Then you think of someone like Butterbean, who actually brings the guitar and more of a personal story narrative. This is what moves Black folk away from minstrelsy and vaudeville and more into what we begin to understand as Black storytelling and Black blues music making.
How does being a blues artist yourself inform your cultural and scholarly work?
I feel if I can't play at least 5 to 10 blues songs, I shouldn't be talking about it. Honestly. Because there's a different connection when you have an understanding of a particular experience. I feel it allows me, one is spiritual and sacred. And I always thought the blues is spiritual and sacred. So it connects me to my ancestors. It connects me to my family's original traditions out in Mississippi and Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
And it allows me to look at it in a multi-dimensional lens, from the inside, from the outside, from the future, because, you know, my work stands in the future of the past legends that give us our cues.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to keep in mind, I've never picked cotton. I was never a sharecropper. Now, have I done work that could be considered reflective or equivalent? More than likely, but I didn't do those things.
Mm-hmm.
So it also grounds me in the reality of how and why these dudes and these women were able to do what they were doing in those days.
In your description, especially in the intro, you basically define yourself as this is an outdated term, but a race man, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your goal is to do what's good for and fight for the progress of Black people. How do you think that approach or even that role has been challenged in the modern era?
Ooh, well, I think it's coming to a head now, but the idea that people thought all this stuff was so far gone,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really, it's a spell. It's not even a con, it's a spell. Because if you're lucky to have a grandparent, then you're really connected to one of these situations that was considered extreme racism.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the challenge was when folks are saying, well, this doesn't happen anymore, or this doesn't exist, you know, and that's not necessarily the case. But also, on the flip side of that, the other challenge is when it becomes, well, we can't do anything because of this.
Mm-hmm.
We can't do anything. And I think that is disingenuous, and that's race hustling. Because during the most violent time towards blacks in America, there were black folk becoming millionaires. There was black folk running industry, creating industry. So if they were able to do it in the midst of lynching and racial violence, how can you tell someone that they can't do it now?
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean there's not racial violence now, but I think you understand what I'm inferring.
Yeah. Are there any current projects you're working on that you would like to talk about?
Well, what I will say is, and thank you for that, the African American Folklorist has grown from a newspaper to a magazine, now to a full ecosystem. The magazine is still part and the forefront, I guess, of the brand, if that's what you want to call it. But the ecosystem is really reciprocal. It's community led. It's community fed, and it calls for members to feed the well as take from the well. And you go to the website, learn all about it, become part of it. And when you become part of it, you can write, you can use the resources, you can participate, but also we have programs. So there's a few courses that we're rolling out now, and we'll continue to roll out these courses throughout the year because we have quite a few. Then when we get to a certain space, and then we have people who has taken the courses and feel they want to add to the course or create a course that is presented throughout the African American folklore ecosystem. There's room for that. Then there's Jack Dappa Blues Heritage Preservation Foundation, which is the parent company, and it's a nonprofit. Everything kind of goes through there. And we also just launched We the Blues People radio station,
Mm.
and we're in the process of programming. And I'm praying that I can raise the funds so we can do our second year of the Porter Parish Granger Blues Festival in Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Great. Okay, now we get to the questions that I ask every guest. The first one is, what songs got people on the dance floor when you were going out dancing at your peak?
Whew, there was so many. And it also depends on what crowd I was partying with, right? If
Uh-huh.
we was partying with the elders, the old timers, then we talk about Frankie Beverly and the Maze or Stevie Wonder,
Yeah, yeah.
stuff like this, Curtis Mayfield. If we talk about the '90s, if we talk about the '90s with my peers, then we definitely talk about Bad Boy, and we talk about the Brat and other Jermaine Dupri tunes. We talk
Mm-hmm.
about Teddy Riley.
Mm-hmm.
You know, man, I can't think. We even talk about the Neptunes and Mystical. I can't, watch yourself. I
Yeah,
can't. Yeah, those are good. Oh, you know what? And in the late '80s, I think they were called Groove Theory.
yeah, yeah,
So there was so many. There was a lot.
yeah. What is a black cultural work that's a classic but is underappreciated?
There's a couple. The first one that came to my mind, I'll say the movie Five on the Black Hand Side.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. That's the 70s, right?
Yes.
Starring who was in that? Um why isn't the name of the actors
Uh,
escaping me? But
my man who played Preach in Cooley High.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
Why is his name escaping me? I know
Okay.
you. Yeah, we
Yeah.
know who he's from. With the glasses. Yeah.
Glenn, Glenn,
Glenn
Glenn,
Turman. Glenn Turman.
Clarice Taylor, Leonard Jackson,
Yeah, yeah,
Godfrey Gambridge, God bless the dead. There's so
yeah,
many of them.
yeah, yeah.
And oh man, Jeanette Dubois.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one. And then finally, what particular dish did your family make that you look forward to the most?
I guess the question would be: are we talking about now or when I was growing up?
You could do both.
Okay, man, that's really hard because we didn't call it back then. When I was growing up, we didn't necessarily call it country dinner because we knew that's what we was eating. We just said grandma cooking.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just say, man, her fried chicken was good, and her fried chicken and macaroni and cheese was impeccable.
Mm-hmm.
My mama's potato salad, bless the dead. And then now my wife make. I mean, she makes pretty much everything she make, but her Hoppin' John and
Mm-hmm.
her collard greens with neck bone is fire. And
Mm-hmm.
then for me, when I say for me, what they like that I make is my grits. Yeah, I kill them grits.
I'm known to whip up a good batch of grits myself.
All right, now that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Lamont Jack Pearley, thank you so much for joining me. I want to really thank you for your organization and all that you do. You've helped me a lot in doing my research. And I do have to say that I was really happy to see that you were in the New York Blues Hall of Fame. I feel, even not directly, I feel somewhat of a connection with you because my father is actually enshrined in the Mississippi Blues Trail, his town, Moss Point, as one of the blues musicians who put that town on the map.
Wow, who's your dad?
His name is Clyde Needham. He's no longer with us, but yeah, he's on the Mississippi Blues Trail in the Moss Point section.
God bless.
Yeah,
That's what I'm talking about. Legacy work.
yeah. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you talking to me, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
Absolutely. And if you ever want to submit, contribute, the door's always open.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.
Take care.
A big thank you again to my guest, Lamont Jack Pearley. You can find his work online at the website, the African American Folklorist.com, and the YouTube channel that hosts a lot of these interviews is also called the African American Folklorist, all spelled out. I thought about several lessons from this episode. A few stand out. The first was that Mr. Pearley's excellent foundation and magazine, all born out of the fact that he could not find the information he was looking for Black folklorists. He could not find it, so he decided to do it himself. In some ways, that's what I'm trying to do. So obviously there are tons of people who've done work on Black culture, folklorists, archivists, historians, sociologists, anthropologists, and other forms of cultural workers. But finding specifically about how ideas spread outside of mass media in multiple areas, I did not have exactly what I was looking for, so I decided to start this. I think this is work that I wanted to see, that I needed to see, and so I'm doing it. Another thing that stood out to me was when Mr. Pearley was talking about how we have to make sure that we uphold ethical standards when we interact with each other, doing cultural work. Good intentions and familiarity are not enough. We have to behave in upright and ethical ways to make sure that nobody's getting exploited. Even people who are from our community can and do exploit. Another lesson is when Mr. Pearley talked about the intertwined nature of folklorists and archivists and ensuring that you have a way to make whatever cultural work you're doing accessible to people. So it's one thing to keep work and material. It's one thing to have it, but there has to be a way for people to see it and to experience it. I think about that a lot, and I've talked about this in previous episodes about being unable to rely on tech companies. A lot of things we take for granted. YouTube can shutter tomorrow. Instagram, TikTok, whatever may be sold. People may move on from them to other popular new platforms. And then what happens to the stuff that's there that you thought would always be there? This is the internet dead link phenomenon all over again. So I have been thinking about that, about how to share, how to platform. And it's not an easy thing in an era of media consolidation and monopoly. So that's just one thing that's on my mind. There's one final thing I wanted to say before I go. Last week, I mentioned an investigation I did into a YouTube account that was doing digital blackface. The channel was called The Hungry Historian. It was littered with AI slop, fake black voices generated by AI, fake pictures, fake scripts and texts and fake narratives. They were selling a $17 cookbook from their website of the same name, thehungryhistorian.com, basically looking to scam older black people into buying this, talking about these were our recipes, playing on their nostalgia and all of that. As I said, I published a blog on the Soul Food Etc. website. I actually sent it over to a prior guest, Cam James, who has a much larger platform. I asked him to boost it, and he graciously did so. He made a video about it, exposing them, did a little bit more research, and found out that the company behind it, Haraya Media Ltd., was involved in some other nefarious AI campaigns, some political, very negative. But as a result of The Hungry Historian and Haraya Media Limited being busted, they changed the name of their YouTube channel from The Hungry Historian to Potlikker. As of now, their handle is Potlikker_official, Potlikker spelled Potlikker. They took down the Hungry Historian website. I'm sure they're going to put a new one up with a different name. So by the time you hear this, they may even have changed it again. So it's really important to be vigilant to make sure these digital blackface crooks and scammers do not profit off of our culture. I just wanted to give that update. And I wanted to again thank Cam for boosting the investigation and hopefully saving a few of our elders from being scammed. As always, please like, subscribe, review, rate on whatever platform you use to listen. Visit the website, blacketcpod.com. Until next time.